I'm Maddie.
I'm Amber. And we're Witches Talking Tarot.
We are the weirdos in this one.
Like a song, like a sailor snubble. Flip the switch and let the cauldron bubble. Sam.
Wow. Hey everybody, I'm Amber.
And I'm Maddie.
And we're Witches Talking Tarot. And today is our season 3 finale. And we bring you the missing celebration on the 8 oaks of the Celtic wheel of celebrations, Lughnasadh. We've missed it the previous 2 seasons, but we finally got you. Also known as the Catholic celebration of Lammas. But Lughnasadh is the Celtic celebration of the first harvest, as well as celebrating the sun and the sun god Lugh, which also I read that it celebrates the goddess Danu, who is the earth goddess in Celtic religion and the mother of all the
Tuatha De Danann.
yes, Tuatha De Danann. And also Lugh's foster mother, I had to keep this up because Tylitu, who was also like a goddess of she was credited with agriculture in the Celtic region. So they celebrated her because it's the first harvest, also a fire celebration.
So since Lughnasadh is the first harvest, that's fun, right? But I like Maybelline better.
I love Lughnasadh
We're
because
getting
it's
into
like
the harvest season. Yes.
one of the easiest ways to celebrate Lughnasadh is just baking bread. You baked bread, you celebrated Lughnasadh.
It's so hot.
And
it's August 1st. It is the hottest of the summer.
And that is why, even though it is a fire festival, you won't see a whole lot of bonfire stuff going on because it's the hottest harvest festival. So they're like,
well, and August is like the hottest
but
part of the summer as well. Like we're at that midpoint between what is it, the summer solstice and the autumn equinox?
yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. So that midpoint, of course, it's the fucking hottest. It's going to get hotter.
Right.
But then it's going to get closer and closer to autumn, which is why it's so important that now we're harvesting grain, the first grain.
Yep.
And we're also going to be saving that grain. We're going to start, our preservatives. What's it called?
I mean, that would be a good
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm like, I
preserving.
don't know exactly what
we're going to start preserving. Because I was reading that grain, especially back then, had to be treated a certain way before preserving.
Or you got ergot and the Salem witch trials.
Yes.
But that's like, you do start preserving. And, that's why baking bread is a great way to celebrate Lughnasadh, because you're harvesting the first grain. But one thing that I came upon that I fucking love was it talked about harvesting herbs and then consecrating them and setting them aside, and that's what you burn during your Yule celebration. So it's all coming full circle when you do it. I loved that.
I do love that. I was going to say peppermint, and then I realized peppermint is very Yule, isn't it?
It is. And I mean, like, I have peppermint to harvest, so I could definitely harvest peppermint, consecrate it, and then use it at Yule. I mean, it's like it's your first harvest, not just grains, but the fruits that you've grown, your grains, your herbs. And I really enjoyed that piece about the herbs being preserved that way, because I love that you preserve it at this holiday and you keep it through these times. And it's like just gathering energy the whole time.
I think I'm actually a lot more excited for Lughnasadh than I thought I would be, because it is the first harvest. The harvest seasons and the harvest festivals are my favorite. So we've got Lughnasadh, Mabon. What am I?
Samhain is the last.
Samhain is the last one, right? So we're getting into spooky season. We're getting there.
Yes. And I mean, like, the colors of the season are starting, because you got oranges coming out,
oranges and yellows
and reds.
Yes. So what
But-
they would do is they would offer some of their first fruits
Mhm.
to deities, as well as bread, of course. I imagine bread and butter. Because when I think Celtic and Gaelic festivals like Lughnasadh, you gotta have that cream, you gotta have that butter.
The fairies walk, they
Exactly.
fucking tokens. Yep.
Exactly.
But they would also have like sporting events, which you don't
Yes,
necessarily
they
hear about
would,
at
yeah.
other festivals. But Lugh, he is the god of all trades. And we did an episode on him, I think, in season 2, where we talk about him becoming a member of the Tuatha De Danann. And he tries out to do all these different things. And it's like, we have a guy for that. We have a guy for that. We have a guy for that. But then they discover like Lugh's the only guy who can do it all.
Yeah, yeah.
And sports is one of the things. So they honor him in all sorts of different ways.
It's almost
the
like the little
festivals.
mini Olympics type thing.
Right. And it made
Um,
me think of in Braveheart, where he comes back and he and his friend from childhood both throw the boulder, and I'm
Yeah.
like, is that Lughnasadh?
They're throwing
Are they
shit.
like,
yeah.
is that a celebration of Lugh? Because they're doing all these sporting events in the Celtic lands? I don't know. It was just it was a thought that I maybe thought about looking up and then didn't. So if you feel like it, look it up.
You sure say.
Excuse me, I got something in my eye. Y'all.
I'm yawning. Amber's rubbing her eye. It's getting late, guys.
Check out the YouTube. Always keeping it
It is
lively.
also a great time of year for weddings.
It is.
Weddings and marriage, which makes sense to me because you get married around this time, you spend Yule together, you want to have babies in the spring and in summer, right? So wouldn't August 1st, let's see, August 1st, you get pregnant, you're pregnant throughout the winter, but you have your baby.
I think at that March,
March?
which actually, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that would
so
make
June,
sense that
yeah.
this would be a great time for marriages and
Yeah.
matings and things like that
Yeah.
for humans anyway.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you want to have a newborn in the warmer months.
Yeah. You want your newborn to have as long as possible before their first winter. So you want them born at the end of winter. So
yeah.
March is pretty, February and March are
yeah,
pretty
it's
much
right
like
the
what
very
you're
end of March.
going for.
Yes,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah. So
Yeah.
I wonder if that's in connection with the marriage part of.
I mean,
you
I
know?
don't know. I think a lot of it has to do with because like one thing that I had read, because Beltane is the god and the goddess, they come together and
Mhm.
have their union. And then at Lughnasadh is that first harvest and you're reaping the fruits of
Mhm.
their union. And that would be a way to celebrate that union by having
Uniting.
union yourselves.
Yeah, I love
Uh,
that. I
I-
love that.
And
it's also
a fall fucking wedding with sunflowers and wheat everywhere is fucking beautiful.
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 I'm also
I love me a
thinking
fucking fall wedding.
Wiccan
Or
Wives.
early fall, like August. I like August and the sunflowers. Lughnasadh, guys, is traditionally on August 1st or July 31st, or as some ancient Celtic traditions might have done, the full moon before that date, which would be today, the day we're recording, not the day you're hearing it. But
Oh,
high
really?
five, timing worked out
That
well.
is awesome.
Which is funny because this is a week later than what we originally planned, but it is the full moon right before the actual holidays. So
Woo-hoo!
timing,
Yes.
we got magic, y'all.
Well,
Sorry, I just thought that was
also,
great.
Lughnasadh was such a special holiday for the Celts and Scotland and the Isle of Man, I think I read. That, of course, when the Catholics came over, they took their own adaptation, which was Lammas, which means
First
loaf
loaf.
miss or first loaf.
Yeah.
And what the fuck were they celebrating?
The first harvest. I mean,
It's like
because
it was
it's an
literally
agricultural
the
area.
exact
Yeah, it
same
was the
thing.
same.
Okay, I was like, I
Like,
didn't know if they had
the
like
same.
a Christian
Well,
notation.
There was probably like a
a
saint,
saint,
somebody.
I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
I know that in Ireland, sometimes they would replace St. Patrick and Lugh. Like they'd
Mhm.
replace Lugh with St. Patrick for that.
I think there
but,
was a saint, but I
you
can't
know,
remember.
And in Bavaria, which usually did follow along with the Celtic holidays in the ancient times, they, since Christianization,
Mhm.
they usually have their celebrations all throughout the month of August, with
Mhm.
their main celebration being on like August 15th and often dedicated to either St. Patrick or Mary.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Something about that. But again, like they carry on those same traditions. Like
Mhm.
they parade a rack of different herbs that have been collected and
Well, of course,
consecrated,
because
and
in
they're gonna be dried.
Catholicism they use herbs. They
Yeah.
they use them
Mhm.
as incense and things like that. Very similar.
Read the Old Testament; it tells you that's the right way to practice.
It's
Just
no,
saying.
really,
It does, you're
and
right.
it's very interesting. But like, I think I am very excited for this holiday. Now, how do you plan on celebrating, Amber? It is so hot in my house. I don't think I'm gonna bake bread.
I usually make cornbread.
Cornbread.
I do.
Ooh,
Cornbread.
Cornbread.
Yeah. I usually like. I won't lie. I do like a good old southern summer meal, and in the South they definitely cook in the summertime. So like we have barbecue ribs,
cornbread,
and
beans, and
beans.
rice. Oh my
Green
god!
beans, because my husband does
Oh.
not eat baked beans.
But you could do like red beans and rice with cornbread. Ooh,
that would be good. Yeah.
good.
And I mean, again, this is all like whatever. Like maybe you have a garden, then you would have like your your
Whatever
first
you have in the
harvest.
garden,
Yeah.
yes.
I have already had multiple, excuse me, multiple harvests out of my garden. So it's not the first harvest out of my garden, but I guess I will definitely try to incorporate, if nothing else, I've got peppers and tomatoes in season. I do have a little bit of corn left.
It's
so
still
I'll
too
pick what
hot
corn
for
I have.
chili, unfortunately.
Yeah,
'Cause I feel
chili
like
is definitely
more
a
Maybon. More Maybon.
sour.
Oh, sour.
Sour. Oh, absolutely, because it's like all the peppers for protection and the
I'm gonna be
spices
honest.
for
I just like
protection.
chili. I love chili. If my AC was working like it's supposed to, I would eat chili now. I do like.
I do love chili, but
something about doing it for the holidays.
in the summer, if I'm gonna have soup in the summer, I want something that's more springy, like
tomato.
Well, tomato is my rainy day soup. To be honest, I pretty much only eat it for rainy days or when I'm sick. I like split pea in the summertime. I like borscht, and like I keep meaning to make gazpacho myself and cold cucumber soup.
Bryson was just talking about that the other day, and I was just like, I just don't know how I feel about cold soup.
Like I do like cold soup.
It's good. I've never had it, and like to me it sounds so strange, but it's something I would absolutely try.
Yeah,
It sounds different. When I hear soup, I think hot.
Right.
Most people usually do. I think when they think soup, they automatically think chicken noodle or cheddar broccoli.
I mean, I think it depends on what soups you like though, because like there are a lot of cultures that eat soup all year long. So like, it's probably whatever their favorite soup is what they think of, whether it's the hot or the cold.
Right.
I mean, like I know in Eastern Europe, they have a lot of soups where there's a summer version and a winter version because they eat so much
soup.
Yeah. And I mean, like gazpacho is fucking delicious. It's like, I think I can't remember if I told you, but it's like, cucumber salad that's got like cucumbers and onions and tomatoes. And Italian
vinegar
dressing.
or Italian dressing.
It's basically like that blended up. Like I shit you not, like just completely.
I'd eat that with chips.
Right.
It's like almost like a dip.
Well, I mean, no, it's like it's smooth. Like think tomato. Like it's not quite as smooth as tomato soup, but because it's not creamy.
Right.
But it's not like chunky. It's like completely blended. Like hummus but thinner.
Okay.
You know, which I guess you could eat it with chips, but it might be hard because it is a little bit thinner than that, you know. But delicious, like that's the right flavor because it's really good. I really do want to make it. My cucumber plants died already because of the heat.
Sorry.
That's okay.
No,
they
the
gave us
heat
several.
Has killed so much of my plants. What I have left is my rosemary and my basil. My oregano was not killed by the heat. It lived its life naturally. It flowered, would not stop flowering. It was ready to go.
Right.
But my mint died. It's hot as fuck if mint is dying.
Yeah, that's sad.
But my
peppers
are still going.
You know, in the Celtic lands, in August, like they have a
it's not as hot
there.
First of all, yeah.
I mean, it is still hot though, but it's not as hot as it is probably here.
Midwest and
but
Southern America.
Also, like, because of their growing season, because it gets warm later, this is their first harvest. They're really getting their first good amount of food. Even like, whereas we are like, maybe we'll get another round of stuff out of our plants. You know, granted, my tomatoes and peppers are going to keep going until the end of fall, but that's different. But at Lughnasadh, they really are celebrating that first harvest, and it's, you know, that's why like it very heavily on the baked bread. I didn't like, there's certain special cakes because again, like these grains and milk, like fresh cream and stuff's available. I didn't see anything about a bannock. There was
God, bonnet, what the fuck? Bannock.
Yeah, no, it's
Do
cool.
I say that often?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't want to be a dick and correct you every time.
It's spelled weird.
No, I get it because like I'm that way about the bat from Anastasia, like Bartok and bannock, because I'm pretty sure it's a bannock. Not a bannock. That's the thing we're talking about. So what's the? There is a house spirit, like a bathroom house spirit in Slavic folklore. And its name starts with a B, and it's something. And for like the longest time, I called it Bartok, but that's the bat from Anastasia, which is also Slavic.
Look, we're doing what we can, which brings me to a lot of people celebrate Lughnasadh, but call it Lammas because they have trouble pronouncing Lughnasadh. There are options, like you can go online now and hear the pronunciation, but like, look, I was calling it for a while.
Well, I saw a spelling of it where it didn't have the DH in it. And I was like, well, why don't they just use that all the time? Because it makes it less confusing.
Like, for English speakers, you know?
Yeah, it's a word, like once you get used to it, it's one thing. But like at first it is very foreign for English speakers. Right. Because it is a Celtic word. Yeah. A Gaelic word.
Gaelic word. It is very
Celtic practice.
But what the heck was I gonna say? Oh, I also read that traditionally a bull would be sacrificed around this time, and they would eat the bull as well, right? Do you think they stewed it? What do you think?
I think they probably smoked it over the fires, and that's probably why they had those fires, was the purpose of cooking food and nothing else, because it was hot.
It was very hot. Yeah. It's not like Mabon and Samhain, where we have fires everywhere. We're walking the cattle between the fires.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. It's time to
harvest. It's the first fire festival. So we got like a little spark. Yeah. Like, you know, it's
like the fire has a specific purpose. There's no wheel rolling of the big ones that are on fire, but there's all sorts of other activities going on that we don't see at the other fire festivals, like the athletic competitions and other physical competitions. Which is it to get the action out because it's so hot? I don't know, but that makes sense to me. Like, you're sweating it out, you're getting those toxins out of your body. Granted, back then there were less toxins, but you know, you still got to cleanse. One thing that I read was, or I guess several places I read different things about how there's a lot of different mythologies that are associated with Lughnasadh, but they probably all stem from like an early tale about Lugh and an entity that he's trying to marry, because one of the translations of Lughnasadh is like the marriage of Lugh versus like celebrating Lugh.
Which again, marriage is very common around that time.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And that would be another reason, why marriage would happen then, you know, because you had said that earlier and I didn't even make that connection because I kind of forgot about this. But it had said, like, I read in multiple different places about, like, you know, being a marriage between Lugh and like a goddess of the grain of some sort.
Yes.
And then a bad guy, quote unquote, one of the probably one of the Fomorians trying to take that goddess. And then there's a battle that's very much like Lugh and an underworld god over this goddess of the grain, which is signifying the passing of seasons, because this is the first harvest, which means there's only 2 more harvests before there's no more food. Year, you know?
Or at least no more food growing, which is why it's so important that now we're starting the preserving process. Yes. So at this point, like I said, the whole making sure the grain is dried and perfectly perfect
Right.
to preserve, because if
this
it's
is
not,
necessary for survival.
yes, because
Right.
if it's not, I had read failure to preserve the grain is considered failure to the entire community.
Yes, absolutely.
If a
And it
farmer's
would be.
crops did not grow by now like they were supposed to, and you missed the first harvest, that is a shame, because you have failed the village, the community. That's one thing that I did read, was like, it's very
I did read
important.
that as well. No, I definitely did, because it this was survival. Like
Yeah.
that, I've said many times about how, a lot of the celebrations or traditions that we hold,
Mhm.
they ultimately break down to this is the best way to survive.
Right.
You know?
Well, even nowadays, it's so sad if you walk by or if you drive by a field and there's nothing.
Yeah.
Specifically now in this time,
Yes.
it's like, damn, crops are bad this year. I remember
Yeah.
there was one year where it just constantly rained, constantly.
Killed so many crops.
We live in
And
that
again,
area
it's
in
for survival.
America.
Food
Yeah.
prices went up that year. Like
They
bread
did.
was super expensive.
Well,
Corn
and
products were super expensive.
This is how they feed their families. This is
Yeah.
how they feed America.
Right.
Maybe international harvesters. I don't fucking know.
Right.
But so it's very hard on them. And it was like that back then too.
Right. Yeah.
That's how they made their money. It's not even just about making their money. These farmers did not make their crops and just we're going to send it to China or Japan or whatever. They made their crops specifically for their community. They
and
were
that's how
so
everybody
important.
survived.
Yes. Yeah.
And without that, you couldn't you weren't going to be able to go on. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And you'll take people with you.
Yeah. And Lughnasadh is a super old celebration.
Mhm.
It's been written down as old as 9th century BCE, but that was Christianized kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And it existed pre-Christian times.
Damn,
you know
that
what I
does hurt
mean?
my heart. When I read that, because I'm thinking about this farmer with his family, and he's looking at his crops, and they didn't do too great this year. And everybody in the village is like, wow, you fucking for real?
Well, but I mean, it wouldn't be back then. You all were growing your food.
Right.
You know
It
what
was
I
like
mean?
a community yard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we took care of each other.
Bitch, you were in charge of the fucking carrots, and there's no carrots.
Well, and right. And I mean, honestly, I don't think they blamed each other at all.
I would
it
hope
was
not, because
we didn't do a good enough job, and we were punished by this God.
Yes, which is where the sacrificial bull comes in,
right?
To ensure that we have the next 2 harvests, that they're going to be bountiful, that we will be able to survive the winter.
And not just the bull and the herb and the grain and fruit sacrifices, but the celebration in and of itself, because the celebration was to honor the sun god, who is responsible for growing the crops, right?
Yeah.
So if we don't honor him appropriately, even with a shitty harvest, if we still don't give him these things, even with a shitty harvest, it'll be even worse next year because we didn't do what we needed to. And I found it very interesting, because some things that I read, they had a very Christianization or modern era kind of view on the holiday. And I meant to bring this up in the last episode, but I guess it works just as well. But, it talked about how they might just celebrate on the closest Sunday.
Yeah, I read that. I think I read that was
day, based on work needs and stuff. And it's well, no, in an agricultural society, you're going to celebrate on the day of the the sun, position in the, in the wheel of the year, because that matters to them, because they are honoring the god of the sun, and they want to make sure that the ritual is performed properly so that he does come back to grow the herbs again, or grow the food and grow, give life.
Well, I think I read that did happen when Lughnasadh turned more to Lamaze.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And Lamaze is more popular in England, whereas, the Celts and the Scots, they kind of kept more their traditional roots, but England didn't. Of course they did. I mean, fuck, that's why nobody
Well, they kept their traditional roots under the name of Catholicism or Protestantism.
Yeah.
which is understandable because if you think about it, when you're holding true to those holidays that the Catholic Church stole from the pagans, you're still holding true to those holidays. And if you're holding the same kinds of traditions, I wish I thought about this when we talked about our traditions episode, but when you're holding true to those same traditions, even though the Catholic Church is the one promoting it, you're still honoring that thing in the earth. You're still honoring that energy, even if you're not saying a specific god or goddess's name. And I think that still goes to that honoring the sun god so he comes back. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I also don't believe that the ancient Celts were like, oh, you know, it's Wednesday. I've got these reports to do.
I don't.
We're just
I
going to
think
do
that
the
was
harvest,
more of a
you know,
Christianization.
right?
type
Yeah,
thing.
like if they celebrated differently, it had strictly to do with weather because, like Maddie said, you have to you've got to preserve the grain in just the right way, or it is going to spoil and go bad. And so people in this village are either going to die or get ill from poisoned grain, or you're going to have ergot poisoning and you're going to have the dancing plague or Salem witch trials. So it's like the weather did play a factor in this. Now, granted, as we all know, August tends to be a drier month. So usually rainfall doesn't disrupt being able to celebrate Lughnasadh at that time. But the weather really was like the main thing that would like hinder that first harvest. Or they might, if their druid priest said, hey, we're going to have a big storm on this day. Let's honor Lugh 2 days beforehand to make sure we get all the crop in before it gets ruined by the storm. Because again, if your crop gets ruined by the storm, like Lughnasadh be damned, you're gonna die from not eating, no offense, Lugh, but I just mean,
No, I
you know
get
what I
you.
mean? Yeah. Excuse me. But
is there any other interesting facts you can think of about Lughnasadh?
Well, I did find a lot of things to be interesting about Lughnasadh that I wasn't expecting. But now that you say that, they have like flitted out of my brain. I mean, I do find it interesting that it's a fire festival that we don't really talk about fire with. We don't really talk about divination so much. There is the union and the harvest aspect, which goes along with the other fire festivals because, not the harvest so much, but that unionization of the fire festival at Beltane, for instance. But I found it to be that I celebrate Lughnasadh kind of in my very own way, and I have my very own connotations for it. And it really has to do with that baking of bread to be providing for my family. And I think that kind of is very much at the heart of Lughnasadh. Do you typically celebrate Lughnasadh?
I try to celebrate all the holidays as a kitchen witch. I try to do something special for dinner to incorporate my whole family. We say Lughnasadh. In my head, I'm like, oh, I should make one of those mini hams or something like that. Probably not going to do that. I think this year with Lughnasadh, we will probably be doing, I think a picnic would be a great thing to do for Lughnasadh, like a picnic in the backyard.
Yeah. I mean, truly, it's a great way to celebrate picking vegetables in your garden.
Yes.
Great way to celebrate Lughnasadh.
Exactly.
Honor the sun in the morning. Lughnasadh is a sun festival. Lugh is the sun god in Celtic lore. That's a great way to honor him. Do something physical. He was all about sports.
Right.
That's why the celebrations at Lughnasadh, even though we don't necessarily see a whole lot of physical activities in other celebrations, Lughnasadh we do. And I did find that very interesting, but it made sense because Lugh is the jack of all trades in the Celtic pantheon. He's also kind of like the head guy, you know what I mean? And he also fought to get there. So you should check out our Lugh episode from season 2, I think. Season 2?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was season 2.
Yeah. But otherwise, you should definitely check us out. Season 4, we're bringing you some great content in September. Release date should be, I believe, September I don't know. It's a team day.
17th?
17th, September 17th is when we come back in season 4, and we will be bringing you exorcisms and Catholic Church conspiracies.
We're going to be talking about the Headless Horseman, which I'm really excited about. Spook lights, all things really fun, Samhain-y, Halloween-y, before we dive into the holidays like Yule and Christmas and
To
things.
kick off October, we're going to have Edward October from October Pod on our show for a tarot reading. So, like,
Yes, that'll be really fun.
So,
Well, in the meantime, you guys should check us out on Patreon if you want to support us and see more of our content. Thank you, Pam.
thank you, Death by DVD.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you, Victoria. We
Yeah,
appreciate your
great.
patronage.
Find us on patreon.com/witchestalkingtarot. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads at Witches Talking Tarot.
While you're on YouTube or wherever you find your podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe so you'll be notified when our season 4 episodes drop. But in the meantime, everywhere she said, also on the X at Classiest Witches, because we are the classiest witches you know. So thanks for coming to sit with us for a spell and a season, I guess.